Welcome to the Wrestling Still Cool podcast. My name's Cam. This one's going to sound a little bit different. I'm going to actually do a little bit of cuts here and there, just more or less to try and keep the flow going and try to change up a little bit from what I've done in the past and have those pauses where, I try to gather my thoughts and gather how I'm going to speak. But before we get into it, you can follow us on Twitter at Wrestling S Cool, Instagram Wrestling Still Cool, Facebook Wrestling Still Cool, or the Facebook at is Wrestling Still Cool Pod. Email, and if you want to reach out, is wrestlingstillcool@gmail.com. One of the first things I wanted to talk about, though, would be regarding AEW Full Gear. At the end of AEW Full Gear, Adam Page had beat Kenny Omega to become the AEW World Champion. So Cowboy Shit is officially reigning in AEW currently. Towards the end of it, the Bucks did give a nod to Adam Page for him to do the buckshot lariat to Kenny Omega to end the match, which then suggests that the Bucks are turning on Kenny Omega. It's been long-standing rumored that Kenny Omega is having a lot of health issues in terms of injuries and that he would need to take time off soon to kind of heal those. This might be pointing in that direction. The other thing I kind of want to address, if you will, is that Omega and the Bucks need time off of TV. They're facing what I consider overexposure right now. They're on TV way too much. They were on Impact at one point. I know Omega was. I'm not positive about the Bucks, but either way, they've been on TV a lot, and they need to kind of dial that back. This is a good chance with Adam Page getting the AEW World Title, with the Lucha Brothers having the tag team titles, to kind of dial that back and show some other talent. Since they had a really rough match with Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Jungle Boy, now would be kind of the time as well to take the Bucks off of TV. This also allows for Adam Cole to be a focus on in the Elite in terms of singles competition, maybe get the TNT title. Now they have been dropping hits of Mount Rushmore reforming in AEW when Kevin Steen or Kevin Owens' contract is up, but we'll see if that actually becomes a thing. Now, still within the AEW realm, Tony Khan. Now, I do like Tony Khan. Tony Khan, in my opinion, is probably a better version of Vince McMahon, but that's yet to be seen. But when it comes to Tony Khan, he kind of made an ass of himself recently. He had stated that he really wanted credit for the NWA All-Women pay-per-view that went on a few months ago, saying that a lot of the talent that was paid for by him, and a lot of the talent came from him. This is one of the things that Tony Khan has to try and avoid a little bit, to not sound like he is seeking credit, to not sound like an ass and make an ass out of himself, just because he has created a lot of favor with AEW and a lot in the wrestling community for turning AEW into what it is today. Now, I'm not one of those that's going to bend to the whim of whoever's running the company. But it's one of those where Tony Khan has to be really careful because the tide can turn against him so quickly. Anyone and everyone knows that the internet wrestling community is kind of one of the most fickle communities out there. They could be, put it bluntly, can be dicks. They could be dicks, and they could change on a whim. I mean, we were seeing that recently where people are turning on CM Punk right now because he's winning a lot of the matches. Now, he had a great match against Eddie Kingston, and they built that pretty much from nothing, just with cutting the promos, and honestly, it was one of the best promos I've seen on TV that felt real, that felt authentic in a long time. They put on a good match. CM Punk was doing MMA shorts of some sort, gear-wise. Like, CM Punk did win, just like Bryan Danielson beat Miro, but it still makes Eddie Kingston look good because there's not many places I really want to put Eddie Kingston, but one, he's a great promo guy. He's great when he does commentary. He's great in the ring thus far. He makes it seem authentic. But at the same time, we both know, or anyone here knows, that he is not a world title holder. He's not the face of a company. I can see him being the TNT title holder, but I don't really see him being the world title holder. On November 18th, 2021, WWE released several people, including John Morrison, Top Dollar, Ashante the Adonis, and Isaiah Swerve Scott of Hit Row, Tegan Knox, Straight Maverick, Shane Thorne, and Jackson Riker. Here's the part that doesn't really make sense. WWE just moved up Hit Row from NXT, put them on SmackDown, and made them one of the premier stables within SmackDown. And then they subsequently cut all the members. I don't doubt for a minute that they will be able to pick up and be able to make something of their careers, but the fact that WWE moves them up from NXT when they're a hit on NXT, really quickly a hit on NXT, brings them up to SmackDown, sets them up to be one of the top staples, and then cuts them arbitrarily. Then you have John Morrison. John Morrison made a name for himself, both in Lucha Underground and in Impact. Then he comes back to WWE, and I thought he was going to be something. Maybe even a future Intercontinental Champion, something along those lines. But they pretty much paired him up with Miz and relaunched, if you will, the Miz and Morrison program, if you will. Now, they took this whole characterization, I guess you would say, of Johnny Drip Drip, and then made it all about water, even though drip is supposed to be how they dress, kind of like what they're doing with Seth Rollins. But they made it all about water, the dripstick, all that, which, let's be real, that was a WWE marketing stunt to be able to sell more toys to kids. Because as I said in the past, WWE is essentially like Nintendo and essentially like Disney. They want to get kids when they're young and then move it on from there. You can kind of tell. It sucks that the programming kind of takes a hit because of that. Because I do think if they weren't trying to target kids constantly, Raw and SmackDown would be a better TV show. There's a lot of things I have with the TV show as it stands. I actually had a hard time getting caught up on a lot of wrestling content because it's just really hard to watch sometimes. But going back to the people that they cut, and I'll get into that more later. Drake Maverick, I don't know what to take of this because I think it was 2020. I'm pretty sure it was 2020 when EC3 was cut. Drake Maverick did a whole video on social media where he might have been cut. And I'm not even sure if he was really cut because they turned this into a storyline for the Cruiserweight Classic for Drake Maverick to keep a contract with WWE. So it's kind of sounds weird, but I don't know how much of that I believe just because of what happened there. Shane Thorne, they messed up that dude. They put him as part of Retribution, and the only two people I think are left in Retribution are Mason T-Bar and Dio Madden and Dijakovic are only ones left. Mia Yim is now gone, as well as Keith Lee, which it's weird because you kind of don't want to say it's their fault because I honestly don't believe it's their fault. I think this is a lot more on WWE. And Jackson Riker. So he's the last one of the Forgotten Sons gone. He was the most controversial of the Forgotten Sons. It probably should have been cut a long time ago. I'm not going to endorse for someone to lose their job, but if someone from the Forgotten Sons is the reason that they had to be taken off of TV, why were the other two cut first? Now, I can't remember what his name was in Forgotten Sons, but he's now part of Impact, and he's making a big name for himself there. And that's good for him. Honestly, like, I would kind of change on how he does his in-ring work. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he's the one that's with Deonna Purrazzo on a personal level. I'm trying to think of his name right now. But either way, he seems more like he'd be a brawler. He's doing kind of more of a cruiserweight X Division, if you will. He's doing more of a cruiserweight style, and I am not a fan of that. I don't think it fits him. I think he would be better suited to be more of a brawling style, kind of like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Steve Cutler. Now I'm thinking of his name. Steve Cutler. But he goes by a different name on Impact right now. But either way, he would be better suited to be more of a brawler. I think it would fit his aesthetic a little bit better, and I think it would overall help him in trying to make a name for himself. He goes by Steve Macklin currently on Impact and with the Forgotten Sons and Jackson Riker. I was more a fan of Jackson Riker when he was part of Impact as Gunner. I had to think of his name there for a minute. But yeah, in this time in the WWE, he did create controversy in regards to being associated with Donald Trump and showing favoritism towards him during the whole BLM movement. But either case, so we have a lot of people that have been released this year, including The Fiend, Ric Flair, Adam Cole. His contract expired and he's now part of AEW, and Scarlett Bordeaux, who was released, as well as Karrion Kross, or Killer Kross, part of their releases that WWE has done this year. Now it's coming out that there's gonna be toys for people that have been released. Now, I'm okay with this because a lot of those molds were probably made well before the releases were done. The only way I would be okay with this in general is if they get paid for them. If they're able to get paid for them and they're able to make money off of their likeness being used by WWE, I'm completely okay. If they're going to be sending checks to those people that they cut, good on them. Now, if WWE keeps the money, that's a problem in itself. But going back to the whole WWE thing, with their TV product, the TV product has been taking hits constantly. It's one of those things where it's weird because they do have one of the top tier production abilities, especially when it comes to wrestling. You can tell with camera work and things like that. There's things that I just don't like about the aesthetic as well. I don't dig the whole with CGI, I guess you would say. The CGI thing with the entrance, don't dig that at all. It's annoying. I don't mind that they have the ramp that's lit up and it has LEDs in it, and like for Randy Orton may have a snake or something like that. That's fine. But when you have the posts that have the LEDs as well, it takes away from the experience to me. I guess it's weird because I guess maybe because I was a wrestling fan in the 90s, I expected to be more grungy looking because that's what Nitro was, that's what ECW was, that's what Raw was. Raw's War and Warzone. But now they go for extremely polished aesthetic. And I can understand because they're, I guess you would say, multi-million-dollar company, billion-dollar company likely at this point. But at the same time, it needs to fit what the programming is. And WWE, it's just too polished for me, I guess. Not to mention the storylines I'm not really engrossed with it. Now, I did watch Survivor Series. One, I think the Survivor Series match was complete bullshit. They shouldn't have done that. If they wanted to do I would be more opt, because Raw and SmackDown kept their champions. I'd be more opt for, at that point, Roman to make a team SmackDown for him to decide who's in it and who's out of it, and Big E to make a team Raw based on who came over. And if they want to interweave a storyline in there, basically have dissension between the two, that's fine and dandy. The Adam Pearce thing didn't make sense. The randomization of who joined each team did not make sense. I think it would have been better if the champion from each show was able to pick their respected survivors, if you will, to face each other. Even for the women's, if you want to have it to where Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, I'm pretty sure Charlotte Flair was the SmackDown champion, pick their Survivor Series people to represent each show. That's fine. But the way it felt like a lottery, that it didn't work. It didn't work for me. And I would probably say the highlight of a match for me of the night would probably be, honestly, Big E versus Roman. They were able to show what they were able to do in the ring, and it didn't make Big E look weak. It basically made Roman look like he had to, I don't want to say cheat to win, because that's not really accurate, but basically that he wasn't dominant against Big E, and he had to figure out a way to beat Big E. So I think this was highlighting both as champions, and it showed that Big E had heart, and that's something that they definitely needed to keep, because Big E is essentially, even though he is the Raw champion, WWE champion, he has to show he has heart, and that's what separates him from Roman. Roman is basically a heartless heel, which is fine. And we saw in the past Raw from last week of November, that a fan jumped the barricade and attacked Seth Rollins. We can question the mentality of the person that attacked him. That's fine. But one of the things that has been shown lately is Ric Flair critiquing